This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily for a big Tuesday game day edition of WST Jets and the Dallas Stars tonight. Winnipeg gets another crack at Dallas, who look to start another winning streak, which is what they did after they played Dallas a few weeks ago before that West Final. But should be a great game tonight. Hellebuck back in the net for the Winnipeg Jets. We'll head to the locker room in a few minutes and hear from Coach Rick Bowness and get ready for tonight's tilt. We'll also have Mike McIntyre jump on the program, and a little later on today, talk a little bit more about this season that the Stars have had so far with Saad Yousuf, who is the Stars reporter, as well as covering the Dallas Cowboys for The Athletic. Looking forward to that. And listen, there's lots to talk about around the National Hockey League. Not what you guys are talking about in chat right now, but Patrick Kane, Dean Evason getting fired. So John Matisz from The Score will jump on. We'll see whether he thinks the Jets are the best team in Canada.
Okay, there is actually some breaking news. That is, Corey Perry's been trending on Twitter for the last.
I'm aware.
But listen to this: Charlie Room-Leota started to wrench Doozer in chat, alerting us the Blackhawks have placed Corey Perry on an unconditional waivers and plan to terminate his contract effective immediately. So, not really sure what's going on there, but what they said they were sending Corey Perry away. His agent said he needed some time away. No. And here's the statement, Huss. Sorry to derail this Winnipeg sports talk with Corey Perry talk, but
I'm just gonna bite my tongue throughout this. Yes, please go.
It just says here's the statement, and this is breaking news here. After internal investigation, the Blackhawks have determined that Corey Perry has engaged in conduct that is unacceptable and in violation of both the terms of his standard players contract and the Blackhawks' internal policies intended to promote professional and safe work environments. As such, Corey Perry has been placed on unconditional waivers. In the event he clears waivers, we intend to terminate his contract effective immediately.
Bye-bye, Corey.
So he's done. He's done.
Yeah, listen, I mean, hey, listen, I have the internet. I'm familiar with what is which is why Perry and Bedard were trending yesterday. I just honestly think it's pretty distasteful. And
yes,
this is an 18-year-old kid that is going to be the face of the National Hockey League, and he's 6 weeks into his NHL career, and this is what he's dealing with. Now, I will say this: I think with a little bit more transparency from the Blackhawks, maybe this could have been avoided. But who knows? It has been very strange as to how tight-lipped everyone has been about this. Every single insider. So it is what it is, but I certainly am not going to pile on. There's enough people taking shots at the Blackhawks for the way they handled sexual harassment in the past, and I think a lot of this stuff that's been online, frankly, is sort of public sexual harassment of people that, from my perspective, are completely innocent until proven guilty. So I'll take a timeout on this. Feel free to, go at it with the memes and all that, but it's something that I know a lot of people are talking about. And listen, it has been somewhat mysterious. I mean, they did bring this guy in to be one of those veteran players with Bedard. And it has been very strange as to the silence out of Chicago and really anybody kind of in the know. So there's the Charlie Room-Leota. And the one thing the Blackhawks won't be doing going forward is having to deal with Corey Perry. And hopefully this can be in the background for Connor Bedard. And of course, that team is going to be here on Saturday afternoon when Bedard makes his Canada Life Center debut as an NHLer. Listen, we may as well get right into this. I'll quickly thank our sponsors for making this show happen each and every day. The gang at Modern Man, Aquatech, Manitoba Battery and Canadian Club, Vita Health Fresh Market. Don't forget, if you're listening on the podcast, get over to winnipegsportstalk.com/contest and enter to qualify for our marble race on Thursday for the Trevor Linden autographed jersey and the Prairie Naturals supplements. We'll announce 2 more qualifiers today, a little bit later on in the program. Wallace & Wallace, F Apparel, Nick and Nicky DQ, Princess Auto, Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, the Winnipeg Jets, and Little Brown Jug. And a special thanks to Nick and Nicky DQ and our great partners at Boston Pizza, who are going to be supplying some ice cream and pizza for everybody at our holiday party next Wednesday, Little Brown Jug, December 6th. Folks, tickets are available right now. We do have limited capacity, but hope that we can see all of you there. And I know there's lots of podcast listeners that are regulars listening every day. We'd love to see you. It is all in support of the Christmas cheerboard. Every cent of what we have coming in from the tickets, which are $11.98. You can get that at the link right now in the description of this video, or go to winnipegsports.com and click the link. We'll come together. We'll enjoy some of Winnipeg's favorite local beers, Little Brown Jug, have a couple slices, maybe an ice cream treat, play a little bubble hockey, and just get festive and do it for a great, great cause. And Little Brown Jug is putting together a great package of some merchandise and beer. We'll probably work on a couple of other prizes, and we'll do a little raffle where it's like 5 tickets for $10, and try and raise some more money for our friends at the Christmas Cheerboard, who do so much important work around their community for those in need at the holiday season. So book it next Wednesday, December 6th, Little Brown Jug. Get your tickets now. Thank you very much, and we hope to see you then. All right, Reem, let's get going on this today. And again, you mentioned kind of the big news of Corey Perry. We're going to touch on these 2 stories with John Matisz coming up shortly. But Patrick Kane has a new home in the Motor City, and the Minnesota Wild have a new coach in John Hynes after Dean Evason took a bullet yesterday.
Yeah, well, he got, I was going to say he was the first coach fired, but no, it was actually Jay Woodcroft a couple weeks ago. And Minnesota's been super disappointing this year. They've kind of been that bubble playoff team, but they really took a nosedive. They haven't got the goaltending they have in the past. Their goal differential -20, which is just 1 goal better than the Blackhawks. Not great, 5-10-4 record. It hasn't gone well for Chicago, and I don't know. I don't think Dean Evason turned into a bad coach all of a sudden. I think the GM has made some moves that have hamstrung the team, like, I don't know, buying out Parise and Suter. And by the way, Ryan Suter is on the top pair D tonight for Dallas, but they have $14 million in dead cap space. Real tough to field an optimal roster, Huss, when you have $14 million in dead cap space. So the coach bites the bullet here, as you said, and hopefully Minnesota can turn around, but it seems like they need to embrace the rebuild there, because they've just spent years and years of getting to the playoffs and getting eliminated in the first round. Although even when they had a good team, when they would finish very high in the Central, they still lost in the first round. It's been weird in Minnesota. They just can't get it done in the playoffs.
Listen, they've been a real competitive team for a long time. Have they had a big cup run? No. But it's so easy to say, oh yeah, just rebuild, blow it up. That's what everyone was saying about the Jets last summer, remember? I mean, there's no guarantees on any of that. And they do have a lot of talented players, but you're exactly right. I mean, but when they made those buyouts, they knew that there was going to be some pain over the next few years when it comes to what they were able to spend compared to their counterparts in the division and the rest of the league. But they felt it was that important to get it done. Listen, there was some pain for the Winnipeg Jets and forking out $5.5 million to Blake Wheeler to move on. But I think we're seeing right now that was an incredibly important move for the Winnipeg Jets to do. And we'll hear an interesting comment from Rick Bowness coming up on all of that. I mean, if you really want to figure out why the Wild, they had $12.7 million in cap penalties last year, and they were a pretty darn good team. Oh, but they were getting great goaltending from Philip Gustafsson. I was just talking about this on the Lock Shop with Dusty in Edmonton, and a lot of the things we're saying about the Wild right now kind of sound like what we were talking about the Oilers 2 weeks ago. Their goalies can't make a save, and their top players have not been playing like their top players. And listen, Kirill Kaprizov has 6 goals on the season. He's just shy of a point a game, but still not quite superstar numbers that you expect from Kaprizov. And maybe the biggest mystery around there and challenge for the next head coach, Reem, is to get Matt Boldy going. They gave this guy the Kyle Connor deal, didn't they? $50 million for 7 years. He's making $7 a year. He's got 1 goal this season in 12 games. I think Marco Rossi's going to turn into a player for them. But these next couple of years are going to be a real struggle for them as they get through this cap penalty. But I think still now, I heard Michael Russo earlier today on with Merrick, said that, the organization felt that they needed to make those moves to move forward culturally. And it's not like they've been a terrible team the last few years. I will say this, though, on behalf of Winnipeg Jet fans, no one's shedding too many tears for the Minnesota Wild. The only thing that I regret about this happening now is that Evason will not be on the bench for the back-to-backs between the Wild and the Jets on the 30th and the 31st, considering the fireworks that happened between these teams at the end of the regular season last year, in particular, the back and forth between the two coaches.
Yeah, that's the video that was going around quite a bit. Rick Bowness and Dean Evason jawing at each other, and that's kind of funny. I did see Ryan Hartman got suspended. I'm looking forward to his return to Winnipeg. I hope he gets booed mercilessly. So we've had some more breaking news here in the last...
Let's just keep it fire going because, I wanted to get to Bomber talk in the first part of the segment because there was a lot going around. What is official? We need a breaking news sounder or something.
I got to get one. I got to get one made. You know what? I have a to-do list here of sounders I need. We got to get something. I'm putting it on my to-do list there, Ben. It'll get
here.
Done.
Here it is. WST. This is breaking news. Michael Remis.
Yeah, the Bombers have announced 2-year contract extension for GM Kyle Walters, and that assistant GMs Danny McManus and Ted Govaya will return as well. Ed Tate tweeting that out, and shout out to Paul Friesen, who was first on that late last night, and that was the big topic on the show yesterday. You and Jeff discussing the Bombers' future of their management group. Now, there are a lot of questions still about Buck Pierce, Justin Dunk, and Farhan Lalji tweeting yesterday that the Rough Riders very interested in Buck Pierce, and he's one of the finalists for their head coach job. Yes, Justin Dunk saying Riders head coach job down to 2 per sources, Corey Mace and Buck Pierce. And we've talked so much about this operations cap. You have to wonder if they're going to go in a different direction because they had to sign Kyle Walters and Tegovai, Danny McManus, and maybe they'll know that they'll have a different OC next year. But we'll wait and see. That was just personal speculation. But the good news is those guys are all back, and they're going to try to return to the Grey Cup this season.
That is massive for Winnipeg. We know many of the players potentially won't be back. when you look at the free agent list, the age of some of the players, the challenges in signing everybody, it's inevitable. But as someone, that, has so much respect for what Wade, Kyle, Ted, Danny, Mike O'Shea has done over this last little while, you feel a lot more confident moving forward that they'll be able to fill the holes in this roster left by potential departing veterans or other free agents because of the guys that they have at the helm. So that is huge news for Winnipeg, made official today, 2-year deals for Walters, Govaya, and McManus. And at the same time, Reem, plenty of steam out of Saskatchewan that Buck Pierce was in Regina yesterday, and the Riders have narrowed their coaching search down to 2 individuals, Bomber OC Buck Pierce and Argos DC Corey Mace. And I may as well put this out to the chat right now. A little why not question of the day for Not Autocorp over at Waverly and McGillivray. How would you feel if Buck Pierce became the head coach of the Saskatchewan Roughriders? And more importantly, back at home, is there someone that stands out that makes sense to be the next OC of the Bombers if Buck Pierce does get that job?
Yeah, I'm seeing people in chat already saying bring back Lapo, who we last saw on TSN during the playoffs this season and during the Grey Cup. I do wonder about that. I mean, he'd been here before, but I don't know if he was
worked with O'Shea before.
Yeah, they had success before. He's seemingly available.
Loved Winnipeg. Wife from Winnipeg, or is his wife Tina? I mean, a great Winnipeg native. Kids spent a lot of time here as youngsters.
Yeah, I mean, if Buck Pierce goes to the Rough Riders, I think you don't want to stand in a guy's way of a promotion. So, like Lapo was on the Rough Riders too, so I don't know. I think it's just there's only 9 head coach jobs, so I don't know. I think you'd be happy for him. Maybe it'd be weird at first, but what are you gonna do? We don't want to prevent the guy from becoming a head coach. So yeah, I think you'd be happy for him, but you still dislike the Riders. I think that you can do both, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have so much respect for Buck, not just what he's done, graduating from QB coach to the OC when Lapo left, but more than anything, what he gave to this organization as the quarterback when he was getting killed night in and night out under one of the most incompetent regimes of all time in the Canadian Football League in the Joe Mack era, and general manager that didn't seem to value a good offensive line. And he took so many hits. He was an absolute warrior, has been a great member of this community for a long time. And I would be really happy for Buck if it is something that he wants to become a head coach, to get that opportunity. And listen, we love poking fun at the Riders, and their organization is somewhat in disarray right now, bringing back O'Day and we know Craig Reynolds and all that. But it would be, listen, everyone here in Winnipeg, I think, is still going to be very, very fond of Buck Pierce for about 363 days a year, with the exception of the Labor Day Classic and the Banjo Bowl right now. So that's something that we're going to be on. But the big news, of course, is that Walters is back along with Ted Gavaya and Danny McManus. And it is amazing to see how the differing opinions on a potential return of Lapo as the new OC. Yin Vivian, Jerry Glanville is new OC. I could get behind that. Always a big Jerry Glanville fan. June Jones, another very interesting number from Reg Dunlop. But we'll see what happens. Bottom line is, I think with O'Shea salary, the rest of these deals that were done today, it might be a younger, more inexperienced OC just because of what they're able to pay that individual. Again, that's if Buck Pierce is gone. We'll find out what the story with that is going forward. But listen, Reem, we're going to have John Mattis come up and join us in a little bit, and we'll get to the big stories in and around the National Hockey League outside of the Jets. But let's hear what we have coming out of the camp today. And I guess the big news is a lot of us, myself included, sort of expected Gabriel Vilardi to be playing tonight, but it doesn't look like he's going to be in yet.
Yeah, Gabe Vilardi, the first clue he was practicing, I guess, as the extra forward. Line staying the same. Connor Shafley, Iafallo, Ehlers, Nemesnikov, Perfetti, Niederreiter, Lowry, Appleton, Barron, Gustafson, Axel. And you thought maybe Vilardi would be in because they sent Toninato down to the AHL, but not the case. Rick Bowness saying not quite ready. Said he's trying on a new knee brace, trying to get comfortable. Hopeful for Thursday. We'll wait and see there. Declan Chisholm had his conditioning stint. He was back with the Jets. But the D pair is the same. Morrissey, DeMello, Dillon, Pionk, Stamberg, Schmidt, Stanley, Chisholm. Hellebuck doing his regular starting routine. So this is a big test tonight against Dallas. And no Vilardi yet was the big topic this morning.
It's funny, and we'll get to you queued up that Vilardi update from Bones. And I know you've said this a few times this year, but last year and in previous years, every single game day, we're waiting for the morning skate. Who's skating with who? What's going on with the lines? Like, these lines have barely changed at all since Vilardi got hurt in game 3 of the season. Obviously, Iafallo moved up onto that top line, and they continue to roll. But yeah, Iafallo with Scheifele and Connor and Metsnikov in the middle of Ehlers and Perfetti. The Lowry line with Niederreiter and Appleton, and Axel, Gus, and Barron on the fourth line. And wouldn't that be interesting if our first WST game was the game against the Kings where Vilardi got hurt, and our next WST game might be the game that Vilardi returns Thursday against the Edmonton Oilers.
That is crazy. We will be there Thursday with a sizable group. Wouldn't that be full circle? That's crazy.
And just a note on that, check out the Jets website. We'll see, and check out if there's still Thirsty Thursday tickets available. I'm not sure if they're in a particular section or you can get them in a particular area, but WST crew is in section 316 and 317 for the game on Thursday. So if you're able to pick a couple spots around there, take advantage of that Thirsty Thursday deal from the Winnipeg Jets and join us for what should be a heck of a game. But first things first, tonight, the Dallas Stars back in town. Jets looking to get one back on Dallas after they came out of Winnipeg with a 3-2 win a couple weeks ago. First things first, Bones gave us a Gabriel Vilardi update today.
We saw you having a quick little chat with Gabriel there. We were kind of wondering if he might get back in tonight.
He won't play tonight.
Could you explain the thought process on that?
Well, he's not ready. Simple as that. He skated with a new brace today, so we'll give him today and tomorrow. And we're really hopeful. Everyone's hopeful for Thursday, but we'll decide that. He'll be one of those game time decisions that we love to talk about.
When you say not ready, is it more comfortability with
Yes.
the brace? Or okay?
Yeah, give him another full practice with the team tomorrow. We haven't practiced much in the last week because of the travel and the games. So he's done it. You know, you get a couple of guys out there and you do some bang on one-on-one drills. And it's not the same as a full-on practice. So we'll be able to do that with him tomorrow.
All right, so there's Bones. No Vilardi tonight. We'll see whether he returns on Thursday against the Edmonton Oilers. Listen, the game earlier this year was interesting. It was Scott Wedgwood in as opposed to Jake Ottinger. Wedgwood played very well. And in a game that the Winnipeg Jets were very much in, fell just short. But after that, went on that winning streak that ended last Sunday against the Nashville Predators. The Jets will be looking to beat Dallas and start another winning streak tonight. Here's Bones on going up against the Stars.
Listen, they're a great hockey club, and we all know where we are. We want to be in that elite category. Then you beat the elite teams. It comes down to that, and so we had a good road trip in terms of we got 4 out of 6. We're not happy with how we played and how we lost that point, at least 1 point in Nashville. But more importantly now, it's just, again, you want to stay in that top elite, then you got to earn your right, man. You got to earn the right to stay there, and to stay there, you've got to beat the top teams, and Dallas is certainly a top team.
It seems very much, like Dallas has become a barometer in a way. What is it about how they test your patience and your belief in doing the right thing every single shift?
Well, they've got a lot of skill, and they've got 3 well-balanced lines there. I was looking at their lineup. I think there's 10 or 11 guys skating there that weren't there 2 years ago, right? So they've changed that team around a lot, and they've all good moves. I mean, Jimmy's done a wonderful job there. Pete's done a wonderful job, he and his staff, but they can hurt you in a lot of ways, and they can be physical with their defense. Some of the guys they got back there, and you got Jamie Benn up there leading the team, and we got one of the best lines in hockey with Rupe's line. So they're very well balanced, and they can beat you in different ways. And I think when we played them the last time, when I was watching it on TV at Iowa, I kind of felt like we beat ourselves with some turnovers and not making simple little plays. Like one of the goals, we get the shorthanded goal. We got the puck at the blue line, and we don't do anything with it, and they go and score. Like, that's beating yourself. So so they're probably angry, but we beat ourselves.
Bones with a little bit of analysis of a game, one of the games that he missed. That, of course, was the afternoon game leading into the West Final. The Jets weren't the winners that day. The Bombers did win. Today, it's all about the Jets, and hopefully Winnipeg can get one over on their division rivals in the Dallas Stars. Couple other bits from Bones today, which kind of more the conversation about the 20-game mark. And, of course, he's been in close contact with the coaches and players throughout his absence, returned on the weekend to that great win in Florida. and of course lost to Nashville. In addition to talking about this game against the Dallas Stars, which of course is the focus tonight, Bones also was asked about the difference between last season and the team and this year. Here's what he had to say on that.
Our depth, for sure, our balance. I think the room is in a much better place than it was last year. Like those moves we made go back to 22 training camp, we made moves and we opened up the room, and it's starting to show itself why we did that. I think the room's tighter. I think the culture here is outstanding, and because of the players. It starts with that off the ice. That's where it all starts. You got to have that chemistry. You got to have that culture off the ice. So this team is a tighter team off the ice, and it's showing itself on the ice. Now, you're talking about what could happen. It's our job as coaches, now that we know this team better, we know what we look like when we're playing well. That's our job as coaches, to stay on them, stay on the individual, stay on the lines, the deep pairings, stay on them and on both their details and their preparation for the game.
Was saying too that maybe the roles are more defined, and maybe even there's more selflessness.
And more, sorry, what?
Selfless. They're more selfless.
Yeah, this team, they don't care who scores, and they recognize when guys are blocking shots, and it's all respected in that locker room. And so, guys might not score, but if they save a goal, that's just as important as scoring a goal. And the guys are recognizing that. They've learned to recognize all the hard work and things that it has to be done by guys who don't score a lot, but they're doing a lot to keep the puck out of the net, and that's just as important as the guys that score the goals. So the roles are different, but the status has to be the same.
It's very interesting to hear Bones, especially just considering he was gone for as long as he was, as the team, really developed into a very good 5-on-5 team, one that was playing consistently the same way night in and night out, Reem. But he always seems to come back to the makeup of the team, the culture, the room, if you will. And again, I mean, like, God knows we don't need to kind of revisit everything to do with Blake Wheeler and whatnot, but pretty clear to mention that some of the moves that they have made, and I'm sure if you followed up with this, he'd be talking about the guys coming in, but there has been some addition by subtraction, and I don't think there's any doubt that the team as a team is in a good of a spot as they've been in a long time.
Oh, yeah. Look, they're getting scoring from all the lines, which I think is huge. With the fourth line is playing more minutes. All the defense players very strong, and you look at in terms of expected goals, they're really doing a great job preventing the high danger chances, and and that's just on ice. Off the ice, what he says, they're playing for each other. There's that respect in the room. So it seems to be going pretty well, and I know people who followed this team last year saying, yeah, they're playing great now, but what about the second half that you're kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop? I feel like this year's team is much better than last year, but I mean, this is why they play the games. We'll wait and see, but you have to be very encouraged with what you're seeing here after 20 games.
Well, and what Bones just said, I think gives a lot of credence to, people that yesterday when we were talking as a threesome with Connor in here about, a grade mark for the Jets through 20 games and who the MVP is why Adam Lowry has sort of quietly become a guy that, was not at the top of the scoring leaders, but has done a ton on that third line, but also deserves a lot of credit. Here's one more from Bones, and then we're going to bring John Matisz in from The Score. Bones, this is kind of what you were just mentioning, Remis, the improved team defense this year. Haven't heard as much consternation about the blue line, despite the fact that was the one area that I think many people thought, still has room to improve. They've certainly played better. Here's Bones on that and more.
Yeah, we started that last training camp, our first year here. We cut down drastically on that last year, but we weren't number one in the league in that. So I know we were in the top 10 and cutting down grade A chances. We want to keep pushing until we are the best in the league. So there's so many, the game is so much faster today and better coached and better balanced throughout the league. Like, it's harder and harder to do those things. So you've got to stay on top of the details every day. You got to keep challenging your team. You got to keep pushing your team. But sometimes you could be doing everything right and they're still going to make plays because of the talent, the speed of the game today. But something as coaches that we put in place our first training camp, and it's something that we are going to keep pushing.
All right, there's a little bit more bones from this morning. 7 o'clock tonight, Jets and Dallas Stars. Big Central Division matchup. Mike McIntyre is going to jump on a little bit later on to continue a Jet-specific conversation. But we're going to kind of go around the NHL. Lots of news coming out of a busy Monday yesterday. John Matisz joining us in just a moment. Hey, we have to give a big thanks to Gary Parks, who made a very nice Movember donation yesterday. We're down to the short strokes, folks. The guys are finishing up their mustache-growing exploits. The final cams are being put in the treadmills, and the final donations are coming in. If you haven't already and you are able to, help us raise money for very important men's health initiatives this month. You can see the link in the donation and in the description of this video. If you're listening to the pod, head on over to winnipegsportstalk.com. There's a link. And if you're with us right on YouTube, heck, use that QR code right there on the screen, which will take you to the Winnipeg Sports Talk page. We've smashed our goal, but we really want to finish strong. And thanks to Gary and everyone that's donated and all the fellas that have been part of the Winnipeg Sports Talk team. Of course, we're doing in conjunction with our great sponsors at Modern Man Barber Shops, 8 locations in Winnipeg, including their newest locations on Pembina Highway and Plessy Road. Modern Man's got you covered, fellas, with haircuts, beard shaping, shaves, color services, and more. You can book your look and make an appointment right now at any of the 8 locations in Winnipeg at modernmanbarber.com. And make sure to give them a follow on Instagram as well for more Movember exploits at Modern Man Barber Shops. Our friends at Aquatech are probably moving a few hot tubs and spas right now as the weather would call for that. If you're thinking about an in-ground pool, they're the leaders in that. You can take the plunge in 2024 and get working on that as well. But right now, their focus is really on whole home renovations with Aquatech. With thousands of renos as their foundation, Aquatech can upgrade any space in your home. That home sauna looks pretty appealing right now, to be perfectly honest with you, where the temperatures are heading to. Listen, if you're ready to enhance your kitchen, your bathroom, or even add a man cave to your home, visit aqua-tech.ca to learn more about their whole home renovations, including financing options. And speaking of getting ready for winter, you know it is inevitable that we're going to be seeing the deep freeze come at some point, and you got to be ready for that. You can't be on the side of the road calling friends or family or CAA to get you off the road, because the best way to be prepared is to get there in advance with Manitoba Battery and make sure your battery for your car or truck is ready to withstand the Winnipeg winter. It's a pretty easy process to make sure that you will be. Get to manitobabattery.com. Enjoy the best prices in town, period. Beating the pants off the big box stores while shopping local. And when you make your battery purchase, and any purchase over $60, Manitoba Battery will deliver it to you for free anywhere in the city of Winnipeg inside the perimeter. It is just that easy. So go to manitobabattery.com and order. Give them a phone call, 783-8787. They can walk you through it and get the right battery for you and your vehicle. And then sit back and let Donnie and the gang deliver it to you. It doesn't get any better than that for price or service than Manitoba Battery. Prepare for the Winnipeg winter now at manitobabattery.com. And hey, just before we bring in John, a big cheers to our friends at Canadian Club. The holidays are upon us. It will be December this weekend, if you can believe it. There'll be entertaining, family gatherings, and plenty of revelry, if you will. And there's nothing that's going to make a better part of your spread than Canada's favorite Canadian whiskey, Canadian Club. Pop by your local Manitoba liquor marts, both for gift giving and for stocking up for the holidays with all the great Canadian Club products. Of course, don't forget pre-mixed CC and ginger ale cocktails that we loved all summer at the Bomber games, also available at your local beer store. But make it a CC Christmas and holiday season at your local Manitoba liquor marts. And remember, this holiday season and always, please enjoy responsibly. All right, let's welcome John Matisz of The Score. And there's a lot going on around the National Hockey League in addition to a busy slate of games tonight. John, what's up, man? How are you?
Ooh, what is not going on, right? I mean, we've got a marquee player signing. We've got a former Hart Trophy winner in Corey Perry having his contract terminated in very vague terms. We had a coach firing yesterday. Yeah, even if you take the on-ice stuff, the on-ice brilliance across the league off the table, we've got plenty to talk about otherwise.
Yeah, well, let's kind of focus in on those stories. And listen, we may as well just get to the Corey Perry thing first. I mean, I think we all saw why his name and Connor Bedard getting dragged into this on social media yesterday. I don't think anybody really wants to comment on that other than it's pretty unsavory. But a big part of the reason why I think this has been allowed to percolate and people having fun with it the way they have been is that, if you want to call it that, is that the Blackhawks have said absolutely nothing on this, as this has been about as closed door a process as we've seen in a long time from an organization that had committed to greater transparency. He's done with the Blackhawks. They're terminating his contract right now. What do we know, and why is this one such a, like, usually when something happens like this, the best insiders at least are in on the game. No one's saying a damn thing, and it's left to jokers on the internet to be the judge, jury, and executioner.
Yeah, I mean, my best guess is that there's going to be a legal process that plays out here, and whatever the Blackhawks say publicly will be used against them in some way, shape, or form. So that's my guess. I mean, it's possible that they're being vague for their own reasons. If you want to get cynical and think about what happened with Kyle Beach, I really hope that's not the case and that things are going to be more transparent moving forward, at least to whatever degree it can be transparent. So we know very little about this, but things were ostensibly going well in Chicago for Corey Perry as far as, you know, Mr. Mentor to Connor Bedard and some of these younger guys, and providing some secondary scoring. And, you know, they went out of their way to acquire this guy in the summer. They overpaid him by, I don't know, $3 million or so. They had plenty of cap space, so you understood why they did that. But it's certainly blown up in their face early on here. And even though we don't know all the details, you have to give the Blackhawks credit in some respect of obviously taking swift action here. Terminating a contract is no small move. And it appears like it's all happened within the last week or so. Some sort of complaint. Again, we don't really know what it is. And then an investigation, and then the termination. So without knowing much beyond generalities, certainly a sticky situation. And let's face it, guys, like, when Corey Perry becomes a free agent, are we going to be surprised if he ends up somewhere else, assuming that what got him let go, what got the Blackhawks to terminate his contract isn't something that's going to ruin his career entirely?
Yeah, criminal.
Just because this is a guy that's bounced around the league a fair bit. A GM loves him, a coach loves him. So that's another, I guess, side plot to this. Is this the end of Corey Perry's career? Or is it just, a couple months off here and he ends up elsewhere, or the rest of the season off and he ends up elsewhere next year? That remains to be seen.
Do we know whether it's termination with cause, and is he going to get his money?
I don't have the press release in front of me, but I don't remember seeing it, the way that it was worded from my memory is that he's not going to get his money. But I could be wrong. I don't know.
All that being said, everything when we're talking about the Blackhawks is all, secondary to what happens with Connor Bedard, because he is the future of this. We're going to see him on Sunday here with the Blackhawks coming in. I can't remember as much fanfare, as much pressure, as much media attention on a young player in the National Hockey League, in a long, long time. And that includes Austin Matthews and Laine and, probably even Sidney Crosby. What have you thought about Bedard so far in his rookie season?
Well, it's funny you bring up the hype and all the attention, because I was in Vegas for the preseason NHLPA media tour. And for people listening that don't know what that is, it's basically every year the league flies roughly 30 players to Vegas, and they go around and talk to all these various media outlets. And it's basically a preseason promotional tour. And Bedard at this point is on month 6 of just talking about the possibility of playing, talking about all the expectations, talking about being compared to McDavid. And, I just straight up asked him, does all this kind of make you uncomfortable? Because you don't seem like a guy that necessarily is super excited to be in front of the camera all the time, or is, really letting people into your world. Some people just aren't wired that way. And he kind of said, yeah, like he's talked to Crosby, he's talked to McDavid about how in the lead up to that first season, there's just so much attention and you almost start to doubt yourself. It's kind of funny to hear a guy like Bedard say that because he's so self-assured, so confident on the ice. But he was like, between talking to McDavid, between talking to Crosby, I wanted to know, like, is this normal that it feels like I'm being overhyped? And obviously, you know, fast forward about a month after that conversation with us at the media tour, and he certainly lived up to the hype. So there's no problems there. And he's I wouldn't say he's revolutionized how players shoot the puck, but he's certainly taken what Austin Matthews incorporated into his game with the launch angle and the way that he places his hand on his stick and taking it to another level. And we're going to see a bunch of Bedard copycats down the line. Give it 3 or 5 years, there's going to be a first overall pick that shoots either similar to Bedard and thus similar to Matthews, or is at some other level that we can't even conceptualize at this point. So that's what really jumps off the page for me, is that he eliminates all doubts about his size just because of how elite he is at shooting the puck and how strong he is, how he has that low center of gravity like Crosby. And in watching him, your mind starts wandering in terms of what he may be in 5 years individually, and also when Chicago finally builds a respectable team around him. So it's been pretty much, 5 stars across the board. I remember early on, the first few games, he was having these really long shifts. His average shift time was either top of the league or top 3, and I thought that was a bit of a red flag, but also you could understand it given what he used to play in junior. But I think he's corrected that a bit, and that was literally the only thing that jumped off the page in a negative way. So this guy is as advertised and perhaps even better than we thought.
Yeah, well, and where they're chasing games the way they have been with the lack of talent outside of Bedard, I mean, I don't blame him for having him out there and maybe stay. Hey, if you've got another chance in you, give it another 15 seconds. But obviously, moving forward, that's something that they do want to get down. Patrick Kane going to the Red Wings. Who are the teams that you heard that were in the mix, and what was the deciding factor that got him to the Motor City?
Teams in the mix: Panthers, Stars, Bruins to some extent. Those are the ones that are part of a group. I mean, there's kind of 8 to 10 teams that were at least poking around, and I find this actually quite the interesting development as far as, if you look at it from Kane's perspective, the guy's made $115 million over his career. He does not need more money. So the fact that he's signing for $2.75 million and it's just 1 year, it's like whatever, because he's not chasing money at this point. But then you look at the other side of it, it's like, okay, so if you're not chasing money, then you're chasing another cup, a 4th cup. And when I look at the Red Wings, at least this season, I see a playoff contender. I don't see a cup contender. I think that jump from not making the playoffs to contending for the cup is not unprecedented, but it's certainly very difficult. And just from watching them, again, I've seen huge improvements. I've seen a reason to be interested in them in general if you're Kane. But for him to spend one of his last remaining years in the NHL in Detroit is very interesting. Now, is it a stepping stone to a 2 or 3 year contract after the season's over? Perhaps. So this is maybe, test the waters while the team is maybe making the playoffs, and then hope that they continue to improve. And then there you go, to end your career, you are in fact contending for the cup. So I thought that was interesting, where he could have went to a better team. I think that's pretty obvious. But obviously, when you go the other way with it in terms of his mindset, Alex DeBrincat, such a strong relationship there as far as off the ice and on the ice. Patrick Kane assisted on 72 of DeBrincat's 160 goals in Chicago. So keep in mind too that there was a point when they weren't even on the same team for the end of DeBrincat's time in Chicago. So that's a huge number. They had a ton of chemistry there, and I also found from the Red Wings perspective that this is a nice next step for Yzerman and his big grand plan of rebuilding this club. They go 25 years of making the playoffs, and it's been 7 since they haven't. and people are getting impatient, and he's built sort of around the edges for the last 2 off seasons of bringing in a lot of veterans and turning it into a respectable NHL team. But I think now you start really tinkering as far as adding more one-dimensional pieces. So Patrick Kane, never going to do much for you defensively, but can he be on your right flank on the power play? Can he set up a guy like DeBrincat and work with a guy like JT Compher as this second line where Compher is the defensive guy, DeBrincat's the trigger man, and Kane is a setup man? Yeah, I mean, I could see that happening, right? So with the low risk of 1 year and $2.75 million, and the fact that there's still cap space to add more, I liked it from Detroit's perspective, with the caveat that this could all not be a sham, that's the wrong way to put it, but all kind of come tumbling down if 5 games into this, it turns out that Kane can't skate properly or can't do X, Y, and Z because his hip just hasn't quite gotten back to normal. Because that is a possibility, even though we're hearing that everything's going fantastic after his hip surgery.
Well,
the track record is not great.
We wouldn't hear any different right now, too, as he's signing with a new team.
Sure,
I mean,
sure.
Everything's all good until it isn't. And listen, even if he's a diminished player, he'll still be lethal on that power play. I mean, that's one thing that's not going to leave him. It is funny, though, to went to Detroit, because one of the other teams that we knew were sniffing around on him is the Buffalo Sabres. And he is a Buffalo guy. That kind of would have been a neat spot for him to go. And Detroit, Buffalo, and Ottawa were that group of 3 teams on the outside looking in that everybody thought were ready to take that next step. And so far, it seemed like Detroit has been the team that's actually fulfilled that potential. They're in a playoff spot as we have this conversation. Meanwhile, Buffalo is just middling, 10-10-2, a straight-up 500 team. And the Ottawa Senators, after getting shut out last night, now 8-9 on the season. They do have a bunch of games to make up, but they're well back in the standings right now. And I just found it somewhat curious that, you know, many people, everyone sort of had their own opinion on which one of those 3 teams was going to make that boost. I was a little partial to Buffalo or Ottawa, and yet it's actually been Detroit that's been that team, John, who had a great start, fell back a little bit, and then got right back into their winning ways, and have managed to, bottom line, manufacture points on a night in, night out basis.
Yeah, I would say the one thing about Detroit that's different about, or within the mix of those 3 teams with Buffalo and Ottawa, I think Detroit probably has the highest floor. I think Buffalo probably has the highest ceiling. Maybe Ottawa. So there was sort of a baseline for Detroit, I think, that they were going to hit, let's just for argument's sake, say 85 points minimum. And then the other ones, you go, oh, where can Buffalo take this after such a promising last season where expectations were so low? Okay, the expectations have risen. They're all a year older. This Devin Levi kid's coming in. They added some depth on the blue line. Okay, like it's everything's trending up. But I think we forgot as a hockey community that, one, last year there was very few injuries that the Sabres dealt with, and this year Tage Thompson's been injured. Dylan Cousins has dealt with something. Alex Tuck has dealt with something. Jack Quinn's been out the entire season. So things got thin real quick up front for Buffalo, and also now that they're past the building stage and want to actually try to make the playoffs, well, guess what? They have to play some semblance of defense, and there's been some growing pains there with what Granato's been doing behind the bench and not translating into wins. Some nights they look fantastic, the Buffalo Sabres. Sometimes they look completely lost and lethargic and like they're overthinking it. So I was on the same page as you. I thought that Buffalo was that one team, if we're looking at the Atlantic, that would break through. And I thought Ottawa would have been right behind them. And I thought, like I said, Detroit, high floor, but I didn't think the ceiling was there. And I still don't think that they're going to go on this magical run or something. I think that they may make the playoffs here. They're in a really good spot at the moment. So it's quite a fascinating turn of events, especially when you throw in the fact that we all questioned what Boston was going to be able to do without Krejci and Bergeron. And I know they're on a bit of a skid right now, but still, they're off to a fantastic start for the first quarter of the year. Toronto's been kind of up and down, but they're still in it.
Toronto has 5 regulation wins.
Yeah, not good.
like that. I mean, hey, I always say it doesn't really matter. I mean, without 3-point games, if you're getting 2 points more often than not, you'll probably be a playoff team.
Sure.
But it is a little surprising just how meh the Leafs have been for the majority of the season, even including their wins over in Sweden.
Yeah, especially when you incorporate Florida into this discussion, right? Where, okay, they don't have Montour or Ekblad to start the season. It's like, okay, game over. Like, this team is going to sink. And they've arguably been the most surprising development of the season. I guess you could say Vancouver out west, but Florida, there were just so many signs, long playoff run. Okay, how's that going to affect the guys that are healthy? And then you've got these two absolute crucial defensemen out for an extended period. And guys like Oliver Ekman-Larsson are stepping up. I mean, who had that on their bingo card, right? So props to Paul Maurice. Obviously, your listeners will know him well. He's found a nice soft landing in Florida.
0-4 against the Jets since he dipped.
Oh, really? Interesting. I didn't know that.
Just thought I'd bring that up.
I'm sure your listeners are like, yeah, take that, Paul.
Well, I mean, that game that the Jets played on Friday against Florida in Rick Bones's return, Bonus's return, might have been their best of the year. And you mentioned it, but like, how big of a surprise to you is the Jets and where they're at right now? Because I mean, as a 5-on-5 team, they've been one of the best in the league. Connor Hellebuck's played a lot better, but didn't have a great start, and yet the Jets are playing Dallas right now, right there. I mean, there was a 3-way tie on the weekend for first place in the Central.
I mean, I love the haul they got for Dubois. I know that Vilardi's been hurt, so kind of incomplete at this point, but I think IFL has been a tremendous addition
Big time
to the forward group. Kupari, obviously, like his ceiling, I'd say at this point is limited, but he's still a contributor. You mentioned Hellebuck, Kyle Connor, as we discussed last year, just completely underappreciated as a goal scorer and has really taken it to another level this year. One thing that jumps out to me is that third line of Lowry, Appleton, and Niederreiter, arguably the best third line in hockey. I was actually just looking it up, and I mean their expected goals number it's pretty outrageous, 58.9, and there's been 39 lines that have played together for 100+ minutes at 5-on-5. They're 12th out of those 39, and you've got some real star-studded lines that they're competing against in that category. And they're just producing flat out at 5-on-5 in terms of goals for and goals against when you take away the expected model equation of it all. So there's that. I mean, you see Perfetti starting to look like the player that we thought he would be when the Jets drafted him. Morrissey is not this one-hit wonder of breaking out last year and then fizzling out. When I look at the Jets, I see a lot of good but not great NHL players, and then that's not necessarily an insult. Like they've got a really solid lineup, and they do have some studs there with Hellebuck, Connor, etc. So yeah, I thought that this season could really go sideways for them, even though they had that stability of those big monster extensions in the offseason. But they've proven us wrong, and props to the entire organization for being able to keep this thing with the arrow up during Bonus's absence there. Because again, that's another hurdle where does this thing go sideways because of some instability. So yeah, it's props to the Jets.
Scott Arniel deserves a lot of credit, but the entire team, and Rick Bonus talked about it just before you came in on just how, and listen, it's funny hearing Rick go back to this right now and how much better the room is right now, because you always hear every team say, oh, or we're super tight knit, we're really close, this is a great room, a great bunch of guys. But they're talking the talk and walking the walk this year, and it has been great. Last one for you on the way out. I just quickly have to touch on Dean Evason getting the pink slip yesterday. His goalies can't make a save. His top players have been well below their standard. Matt Boldy's got 1 goal. They invested 7 years and $50 million in that guy. It sounds a lot like Edmonton a few weeks ago, minus the $15 million cap hit that they're dealing with right now. Was this inevitable, or did he get a raw deal?
Maybe a little bit of both in terms of, as you mentioned, Andrew, they're trying to thread a needle here with the Wild and the dead cap that they have from the Parise and Suter buyouts, that the margin for error is so thin, and they had such strong performances from their goaltenders last year, and Kaprizov really went off again. And when your top goal scorers, Kaprizov and, as we mentioned, Boldy, and the goaltenders are not performing up to their standards, and then you factor in that you're working at such a disadvantage with $15 million going to no one on your roster, next thing you know, Wild are where they are. And hey, like, they have an absolutely horrendous penalty kill. They've allowed goals left and right. Some of that comes down to coaching. Some of it comes down to the personnel, aka what the GM did, and some of it just comes down to a lack of execution on the players themselves. So, confluence of events. I think Evason's a pretty good coach, like probably average NHL coach. I'm not going to sit here and say he's the best in the world, but I'm sure he'll get picked up sooner than later. And I just don't know where the Wild go from here as far as the situation that they're in, and the fact that you can only do so much with this dead cap.
Hopefully they go to about the 12th overall pick and they miss the playoffs. That's what we all hear in Winnipeg. Like, we are going to miss the Dean Evason, Rick Bowness rematch on the 30th of December, considering the way the team ended. Hey, just before we go, I have to ask you, how often do you get mistaken or told you look like Seth Rogen? Because half of the comments in the chat right now have been Rogen related for the last 10 minutes.
That's awesome. Well, it's funny because I swear people bring that up all the time, but they'll bring up different aspects. They're like, oh, you sound like him, or oh, your laugh sounds like him, or you look like him. So it's like, what is it? And then when I see pictures of him, I mean, I don't see myself, Seth Rogen. I can see maybe the laugh or maybe the voice, but let's just say your listeners are not the first people to bring.
Super bad John Matisz of The Score with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk today. Fun chat, man. Let's do this again real soon. Appreciate it. Fill people in on what you got cooking at the Score these days.
Yeah, not writing the next Seth Rogen film. Sorry, guys. Nothing really to promote off the top here, other than if you want to check out my reaction to the Patrick Kane signing, go to the Score app and check that out. Otherwise, I just follow me on Twitter. That's your best bet as far as reading my next story that comes through, or down the line, or listen to me on podcasts and whatnot. So it's at MATIS JOHN, no space, no underscore, just Matisz John. And thanks for having me on, guys. Always a pleasure, and happy to come on again.
No problem. Well, we'll do it again soon, and maybe to talk about a big national article on Canada's team, the Winnipeg Jets. Thanks so much.
There you go.
Have a good one. There's John Matisz. We're going to focus back in on the Jets in tonight's game with Mike McIntyre of the Winnipeg Free Press coming in just a minute. But again, big game tonight. Tickets available. If you haven't already, and you're able to, join us at the game tonight. Should be a great one. But the Thirsty Thursday deal continues. Thirsty Thursday with WST on Thursday night against the Oilers. How does that sound? Get on over to winnipegjets.com/tickets for those deals. And hopefully you jumped on some of those Black Friday or Cyber Monday deals. Some great deals going into the holidays for tickets to see your Winnipeg Jets. And, of course, there will be some other packages being released in and around the holiday season. But let's focus on this week right now. Connor and Connor, back-to-back. McDavid on Thursday. Bedard on Saturday. And, of course, a big one tonight. And then next Monday, Carolina will get a chance to see the 48s worn by the Winnipeg Jets for the first time out of 3 games this season at home. Gang, Remo, maybe if you want, after Mike, we'll announce 2 more qualifiers for the Vita Health contest. But if you haven't seen it, folks, we got this beautiful autographed Trevor Linden jersey, complete with the certificate of authenticity, which we'll be giving away in a marble race on Thursday for the final day of Men's Health Month, along with this full package of supplements from Prairie Naturals, which is Canada's #1 men's health brand. So just head over to winnipegsportstalk.com/contest if you haven't already. Get your name in. We'll announce 2 more qualifiers later on today. We'll do 2 more Wednesday, and we'll do 2 more on Thursday. And then everyone that's qualified will get a marble, and we'll give this sucker away Thursday to finish off Men's Health Month. Of course, as it is Men's Health Month, Prairie Naturals offers Canada's #1 line of men's health supplements. helping men address the challenges with prostate health, andropause, low libido, testosterone, stress, male energy, and performance. On sale all month at Vita Health with 6 Winnipeg locations. And of course, online at their fully shoppable website at myvita.ca. Vita Health, empowering people to lead healthy lives. Hey, our friends at Wallace & Wallace are, the go-to folks for fencing and overhead doors 12 months a year. And we've seen their fences all over the city, as you will, as the leader since 1946. But as I mentioned, they're also the leader in overhead garage doors. And that overhead garage door of yours had lots of ups and downs this summer and fall, but it's about to work a whole lot harder heading into the winter, because winter puts much more stress on a garage door. The right time to prevent downtime this winter is now. Call Wallace & Wallace to book your inspection and maintenance service. Call today for residential and commercial overhead door sales and service. There's only one name or two you need to know, and that is Wallace & Wallace. And, I gave a big thanks to Gary Parks, who made a nice Movember donation earlier. And Gary, a regular everyday listener, as is his son, our good friend Andrew from F Apparel. And the F guys just had a wild Black Friday sale with some of the biggest deals all year long. And now it's time to get ready for the holidays. Guys, if you need to up your menswear collection or your closet heading into 2024, get on down to F Apparel. Of course, gift cards, a very popular gift at this time of year. And if that man in your life would like to maybe jump on a beautiful new suit, some golf pants, custom chinos, shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, made to fit as only F Apparel can, or the best selection of menswear accessories, get them an F gift card right now for the upcoming holiday season. Pop down and see him in person at 190 Smith Street, and you can check out more on everything F has going on online and make an appointment at F, that's EPH, apparel.com. All right, let's get ready for this till tonight and bring in Mike McIntyre of the Winnipeg Free Press. Mike, what's going on? Welcome back to the Peg. How are you?
Doing good, doing well, Huss. After a little time away last week, well, Kenny had the Jets on the road, of course, a little holiday time, and good to see the Jets back home. Good to see Rick Bowness this morning. Of course, he rejoined the team on the road trip, but for those of us media back here in Winnipeg, it was a chance to get to see and talk right up close, and he had some interesting things to say. I know you've touched on it a little bit. How about his comment about the differences between this year and last year, when the Jets, of course, got off to that hot start? I found his comment about the room be very interesting when he mentioned that the room is a lot better this year than it was last year. That's an interesting development, don't you think?
Well, I do, and especially considering what were we hearing right now at this point last year, as the Winnipeg Jets enjoyed a very, very nice start to the season, and had, much like this year, I think exceeded most people's expectations. It was a lot of talk about the room. Now, I think we saw in the second half of the season, maybe that was somewhat blowing smoke. I will say, and I think most would agree with me, that it feels different this year. A big part of that is the leadership starting off with Adam Lowry. And I couldn't tell, Mike, whether this was a guarded mention of addition by subtraction on some players that are now long gone and playing for the New York Rangers, one in particular, or just credit to everybody with the way they've stepped up and rallied around a real captain like Adam Lowry. But it was hard not to notice that, Mike, that of what Rick Bowness was saying, at the same time giving a lot of credit to his club. But at the same time, I think showing that, while this process started last year with the move made in training camp, as he mentioned, that, there was still a long ways to go. And Remo, while we get Mike back in here, I'm sure you would agree. I mean, Adam Lowry has been such a big, big part on the ice and off the ice by the example that he's setting with, with his third line and as the captain right now. And the early results and just the feeling around the team, I don't think could be much better.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. We're talking about MVPs, and I agreed. I would consider Adam Lowry as an MVP candidate. You see him bringing in the leadership, wearing the C, but also his on-ice play. I mean, his line for a while was with the top line on the team, and they were scoring goals, shutting down the other team's best. So, Adam Lowry, I think he's certainly done a lot for the team culture, but also, on the ice as well.
Okay, I think we've got Mike back with a better connection. Mike, I was just sort of mentioning, what Rick was saying, and I don't know how much this has to do with Blake Wheeler being gone. It's kind of hard to have this conversation without mentioning that in some fashion. But the way everyone has bought in, I think, rallied around Adam Lowry to begin with, and the fact that they're putting their work boots on each and every day, playing with a level of consistency that we certainly didn't see. Even in the great start last year, the start was very different with the way they were winning hockey games.
Yeah, you don't think Rick Bowness was referring to David Riddick and Kevin Stenlund and Saku Manalainen, Huss?
It was all Stenny's fault, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, can't help but, when we hear comments like that and you look, okay, what's changed? Obviously, and Rick did make mention of the leadership change last year. And I think, now with some passage of time, I think we can all appreciate that having Blake Wheeler around and in the circumstances of last year, it probably would have been very awkward for everybody. And that's now behind them. As you mentioned and Remis mentioned, Adam Lowry has certainly led on and off the ice. He's leading by example. He's on pace for a career season, doing and saying all the right things. This is his team. He's put his stamp on it. And the Winnipeg Jets are, I think, all the better for it.
You know what, Mike? We have a really bad internet connection with you right now. We might need to get you out of the red because we're just on the verge of dropping you at all points. I mean, maybe if you want to disconnect, we can either get you in a different spot or we can jump on and do it over the phone. But Reem, if you can, just while we get Mike back up, if you can, I want to play this clip again because we're kind of talking about it. Mike just reset it. There were some people that probably didn't catch the start of the show. This is that clip number 4, as it's labeled in the show notes. Bones on the difference between last year and this year. Let's play this again if people missed it, and then we'll bring Mike back in, hopefully with a better connection to break it down a little bit more and then get into tonight's game.
Our depth, for sure, our balance. I think the room is in a much better place than it was last year. Like those moves we made go back to 22 training camp, we made moves and we opened up the room and it's starting to show itself why we did that. I think the room's tighter. I think the culture here is outstanding, and because of the players. It starts with that off the ice. That's where it all starts. You got to have that chemistry. You got to have that culture off the ice. So this team is a tighter team off the ice, and it's showing itself on the ice. Now, you're talking about what could happen. It's our job as coaches now that we know this team better. We know what we look like when we're playing well. That's our job as coaches to stay on them, stay on the individual, stay on the lines, the deep pairings, stay on them and top on both their details and their preparation for the game.
I was saying too that maybe the roles are more defined and maybe even there's more selflessness.
And more, sorry, what?
Selfless. They're more selfless.
Yeah, this team, they don't care who scores, and they recognize when guys are blocking shots, and it's all respected in that locker room. And so, guys might not score, but if they save a goal, that's just as important as scoring a goal. And the guys are recognizing that. They've learned to recognize all the hard work and things that it has to be done by guys who don't score a lot, but they're doing a lot to keep the puck out of the net, and that's just as important as the guys that score the goals. So the roles are different, but the status has to be the same.
So there's Bones from this morning, and Mike, as I mentioned, we've heard this team and players and coaches say the exact same thing that Rick Bowness has said for a number of years. I guess what it comes down to is I believe it a lot more right now, and I think we're seeing it a lot more day in and day out on the ice and off the ice with this team.
Oh, 100%. And, I think back to that game a couple weeks ago when Nashville was here, and that was the game Dylan Samberg blocked 9 shots in that game alone. I think he had 9 of the 16 that night. Nobody had more than 1 except him. And several of them were of the extremely painful variety. And I remember looking at the bench as he hobbled off after one particularly painful sequence. And honestly, Huss, the bench was alive, the same way it would be alive, if Nikolai Ehlers is going end to end like he did the other night, or, Kyle Connor rips a beautiful one-timer, or Connor Hellebuck makes a tremendous save. And so you got that sense that just what Rick Bowness alluded to today, that they're all in, the investments there. And I think, Huss, one of the things that is very important when talking about these current Winnipeg Jets is just to appreciate some of what they've gone through as a group. Rick Bowness mentioned, and other players today, Brendan Dillon and Adam Lowry, talked about the importance of a couple of these long road trips they've had kind of early in the year here, to kind of reacquaint themselves with each other, spend a lot of time together, and get to know some new players that obviously came in. And I think we've seen the bond really tighten here, and don't discount that this team has gone through several emotional incidents. Obviously what happened with Rick and Judy Bowness, made a real mark on this group. And Rick Bowness, as we've seen, he's beloved in that room. And, the team, they certainly didn't miss a beat with Scott Arniel behind the bench, but, part of their thoughts and prayers were certainly with the Bowness family. What happened with Adam Johnson and the connection to Neil Pionk and others on the team. And I think these Jets, they've been there for each other. And so when Rick Bowness often talks about this group being a family, and that's something you hear quite often, they've had some opportunity early this year to kind of put those words into actions. And we've seen this group come together. And, so that's why it seems like they're in every game, even when they lose, like the other night. There's no quit in them. And I think this is a group, Huss, quite frankly, that if you're a fan of the Winnipeg Jets, there's probably a lot to like about these guys and the way they're playing, their style of game, the personalities around the team, the leadership of Adam Lowry. They're a pretty likable group. And, at the end of the day, obviously it's a results-oriented business. Well, the results have been there as well to boot.
Yeah, I mean, you just mentioned the likability of this team. And I can tell you from talking to fans every single day on this show, in the community, at a bar top, at a game, there's almost no comparison right now between this unit and the teams of the last few years, even though many of the individuals are the same. And there's a lot that's gone into it, but I think it goes back to what Bowness has said. And really at the start of the year, everyone that is here is all in. They want to be a part of it. And I mean, it certainly gets tiresome hearing for the last few years about which guy wants out, who's going elsewhere. There's none of that right now. And I'll tell you what, why would you want out when your team's playing the way the Winnipeg Jets have been? What do you expect tonight? How do they bounce back from a tough loss against Nashville that ended the winning streak with the memory of their previous loss to Dallas 2 weeks ago, on their minds as well?
Well, I'm really curious and excited to see what tonight brings, and not just because as you just mentioned, you wonder how the Jets respond to their first loss in regulation here in quite some time. A game that they certainly, I think, played pretty well through stretches. You could say they deserved better in that first period than a 1-0 deficit. They had so many chances early and often and weren't able to score. And then, of course, they fall down by 3, but they mount a pretty significant comeback that was really close to at least pushing that game to overtime. So there was some fight in the Jets, and you'd think that they will certainly try to pick that up. But I'm really curious to see what we get from the Dallas Stars, Huss. I don't know if folks have checked the schedule. They've actually been off since last Friday. And that game on Friday likely left a really bad taste in the mouth of the Dallas Stars. They were in control of that game at home against the Calgary Flames, and they imploded in the third period. They gave up 4 straight goals, and they ultimately lost 7-4. We think of Dallas being a team that's, very responsible defensively, and to give up a touchdown as they did in that game, that was very uncharacteristic of the Dallas Stars. They've now had some extra time to let that ruminate, and I don't imagine that they're going to come out anything but ornery tonight. with their first chance at kind of redeeming themselves after a real rough game. So it should make for a really interesting contest. You got, if you believe the whole team coming off a road trip, the old hangover kind of thing. I mean, I don't know. In the modern NHL, is that even a thing, the way the players travel? The Jets took yesterday off. They canceled practice. So they've certainly had some time to recover. It wasn't rigorous travel back from Nashville on Sunday night. And I think this is a Jets team that they didn't like how the last game against Dallas went. That was the only blemish on the last homestand. They won the other 4 games. And I don't imagine the Jets want to get this homestand off on the wrong foot with another L against a team that they're right now competing for first in the Central with. So it should make for a really entertaining tilt. You got 2 teams kind of out to maybe redeem themselves a little bit from the way the last game went. And 2 very talented teams. I think patience is going to be the key, Huss. Kind of like what we saw in Florida. And the Jets did a masterful job of waiting that game out, not getting away from their identity or what they're trying to make their identity. They didn't panic. They didn't cheat for offense. It was a 1-goal game until well into the 3rd period. They waited for the Florida Panthers to make mistakes, and they pounced. And I think a similar blueprint game plan against a pretty similar Dallas Stars team would be the key to success tonight.
Well, and a hell of a goaltending matchup tonight as well. Connor Hellebuyck gets back in after Laurent Brossoit got the start against Nashville. And I don't know. I mean, you were away last week, but I had said on Monday or Tuesday going into the game that, and maybe this was trying to manifest it, that Hellebuyck was going to, we saw just how good he was in that 3rd period against Buffalo. He had 4 days off before the next game. He had a real strong game in Tampa and was brilliant against the Florida Panthers. And, that 8 that his save percentage started with last week, that would be the last time this season we'd see it start with an 8. And that prediction looks pretty good right now. Of course, he had the night off. Wasn't a great night for Laurent Brossoit, but he's back in to presumably start another run this week. It was Wedgwood last time for Dallas in that game in the afternoon. But just thoughts on where Hellebuyck's at right now going into this game, presumably where he'll play again on Thursday and potentially even again on Sunday. We know how he likes those matinees against the Blackhawks. And how much they'll sort of lean on their goaltender who to really try and get him on a run of a bunch of really solid Connor Hellebuyck starts.
Yeah, I mean, Connor Hellebuyck, to me, I know he was saying even earlier in the year when his numbers weren't where we expect them, that he still really liked his game and thought he was playing well. But I think we could all see, Huss, that he didn't look quite the same. Connor Hellebuyck, when he's at his best, he is big. He is boring. Connor Hellebuyck early in this season, I mean, how many times were we seeing him kind of swimming in his crease or out of position? Very uncharacteristic of Connor Hellebuyck. And, there were times where it almost felt like he lost the net in terms of where he was, his positioning. And that's just not like him. One thing we know about Connor Hellebuyck, he's a student of his craft, and he spends a lot of time watching video with Wade Flaherty. We see it on the ice. They come out early. Wade Flaherty's got the iPad out, going over things. They do it on the bench. And, even Huss, when Connor Hellebuyck doesn't start, as was the case Sunday in Nashville, he's not even on the bench. He's back in the room and he's watching video. He's a guy that is always trying to get better. So I have no doubt that even though he was saying that, he felt his game was where it needed to be, he recognized that he was probably doing some things that kind of weren't his usual high standards. And to his credit and the team's credit, I think they've quickly got him reset. They got him right. And we've seen, the Connor Hellebuyck of old in his last few appearances. And yeah, tonight, I mean, this is as compelling a goalie matchup as you get. Huss, if you were sending a team right now to the Olympics and a U.S. team, would these be your 2 starting goaltenders? I think, Jake Ottinger and Connor Hellebuyck, they're right there. Certainly.
Yes. That's a simple answer. It's yes.
So, I mean, you got, the 2 best probably the two best American goalies going at it tonight. And that's why I say patience is going to be key. I know that the Stars gave up 7 the other day against Calgary. That's an anomaly. You're not putting up a touchdown against this team very often. I expect something along the lines of what we saw the last time these two teams played, albeit with Scott Wedgwood in that. A pretty low-scoring, low-event kind of game. 3-2 was the final. As always, special teams are going to play a role tonight. Is there going to be a lot of penalties? I expect there'll be some physicality. The Stars like to play kind of a heavy game. The Jets are comfortable playing that kind of game as well. But yeah, I mean, with the goaltenders tonight, it's pretty marquee. And in fact, Huss, you look at this whole homestand, right? You got a battle basically for first place in the Central tonight. You got Connor McDavid, who, he's put up like back to 9 points in the last 2 games. Connor McDavid appears to have found his game after some struggles. Oh, then we get Connor Bedard in after Connor McDavid, the first time that he's going to play here. And I expect the barn will probably be filled with a lot of folks from the Regina area who might be making the trip east to see the guy that they used to watch with the Pats. And then they close out the homestand with the always exciting, high-flying Carolina Hurricanes, another kind of litmus test against a really good Eastern Conference team. This is a great homestand, Huss, and I'm excited to see how this next week plays out.
Well, speaking of this homestand, Mike, we know Hellebuck's going tonight. I imagine he'll go again on Thursday against the Oilers. Considering the start that Laurent Brossoit has had to the season and the game that he had on Sunday, when what do you make of Brossoit's situation, which I think we can all agree has changed considerably since he signed, and the uncertainty about Hellebuck now being here for another 7 years? They've got this afternoon game, which normally has been Connor Hellebuck's time to play, a Monday game against Carolina, a very good team, and then 2 days off before a game against the Avalanche, and then another 2 days off before the Ducks. Yeah. There's no back-to-backs until the middle of December. When does Brossoit get back in?
Oh, I think he probably does play Saturday against the Hawks. Huss. I think that's probably the plan here. And then his next game would be one of those back-to-backs. I believe it's San Jose and Los Angeles. So he'll get one of them. They're playing San Jose first, I believe.
Yeah.
That's the team that's obviously the much weaker of those two teams. But yeah, I don't think the Jets are going to let Brossoit go what would essentially be more than 2 weeks between starts and not give him the net again until that back-to-back in California. I think he probably gets Saturday, but I guess if the Jets really wanted to switch it up, they could give Hellebuck Saturday and then give Brossoit the net on Monday to close out the homestand against, it's not a 4-pointer. It's not a divisional game. It's not even a game within the conference. So obviously Carolina has a very good team, but, so maybe the Jets let Hellebuck run 3 straight here. Then they give him a night off against Carolina, and then they get him focused for what should be another great matchup next week in Denver, with the team that's right there with Dallas and Winnipeg right now. But yeah, I think Brossoit will get one of those last 2 games on the homestand. My bet would be Saturday, but it's possible that they wait until Monday.
Hey, we got a great crew in here on the live show right now, well over 400 in the chat. And let's get those thumbs up, folks. We only got a 126. Do us a favor, hit that thumbs up, and make sure, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and be a subscriber to Winnipeg Sports Talk. It's completely free. And if you do miss the live show, you'll be able to jump on YouTube later, and it'll be right there ready to go for you, about as convenient as possible. Mike, I think many of us were expecting that Gabriel Vilardi would get back into the lineup tonight. That is not the case. Certainly sounds like he is a possibility for Thursday. This might be the last time we ask this question. Where does he fit in? And was there any clarity at all from Rick Bowness today with, probably not, because he wasn't on one of the top 4 lines. He was the extra forward. But how do you see that shaking out, at least to begin with, when he's back in?
Well, Rick Bowness the other day, I know Kenny asked him, I think when they were in Nashville, about how that might look. And I found Rick Bowness's comments kind of interesting, that he said, we're not going to throw him in 20 minutes a game right off the hop here, kind of not going to throw him right into the fire. And, it almost made me wonder, Huss, Like, does he come back in actually on the fourth line? And obviously power play, he'd be on one of the two units, probably the top unit. But is it possible that they ease him in and maybe he plays with Morgan Barron and David Gustafson and he just knocks Axel Jonsson-Fjällby out for a game or two until he can get his feet back? I wouldn't totally rule that out. I do wonder, and look, this is not a knock at all against Alex Iafallo or that top line, but as good as that Connor Scheifele Iafallo line was going a couple weeks ago, they've cooled off a little bit. I think they're still doing a lot of really good things. But I think the other development most recently is Ehlers, Nemestikov, Perfetti. They're really going well right now. And I think if you're just kind of taking the temperature of where the team's at, maybe you're loath to break that group up right now, and you're almost more comfortable in potentially putting Vilardi back where he started the year with Scheifele and Connor. And then maybe it's Alex Iafallo who actually eventually moves down to a fourth line role. I know it would be some would view it as a huge demotion, first line to fourth line, but I think it's important to remember, again, with this group, the depth they have, the way they utilize their four lines, like we're not talking about a fourth line that only plays 6 or 7 minutes. The ice time would still be there. He'd still be on the power play. I do wonder if we do see Vilardi back with Scheifele and Connor very soon upon his return.
It's funny because, the one possibility that I think many of our media guests that have jumped on would be putting him into line 2 with Ehlers and Perfetti and potentially moving Perfetti back to center, potentially having Vilardi play at center and having Vlad go back to the fourth line. Right. Pretty hard to complain about what Nemestikov's doing right now with those guys, though. And I mean, the one thing that you don't want to change too much right now, a move with Vilardi to the top line would also probably, I would anticipate, move Mason Appleton with the season he's having down to the fourth line. Because I do think that on paper, I mean, Iafallo and Nino on the wings of Adam Lowry is the best third line we've had in theory, but they haven't played very much. And as I said, I mean, you can't give anything but an A grade to Mason Appleton for what he's been doing with Lowry. I mean, good problems to have, I guess, but there is also the old adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Well, for sure. And then to your point there, if you were to put Iafallo on the third line, move Appleton down to what is essentially the fourth line, we know Mason Appleton and Morgan Barron have a lot of chemistry. They were the flanks for Adam Lowry for a huge chunk of last season on the third line. If Barron and Appleton are now your fourth line wingers, probably with David Gustafson to start and then maybe Rasmus Kapari when he gets back. Again, now a deep forward group is even deeper. And as you say, very good problems to have. I am a bit surprised Vilardi isn't going tonight. I do wonder if they're just being extra cautious. Again, Dallas plays a real heavy style. And again, I think the Jets, they're not in a panic situation because they're playing so well. There won't be the feel that they have to rush him back or anything like that. I'd be surprised, Huss, if we don't see him return on Thursday night. I think his return is very close. Part of it is the Jets haven't had a whole lot of practice time here. I think they got him in the morning skate today. They'll get him in a full practice tomorrow. I think if everything goes well, he'll be in the lineup on Thursday.
Beauty. Mike, hey, listen, next Wednesday, no game that night. WST holiday party in support of the Christmas cheer board. Would love to see you out there if you're able to join us for a couple and maybe a couple slices. Some ice cream from Nick and Nicky DQ. You can take me on in the bubble hockey game there. So,
Huss, I would absolutely. I'm actually going to be in Denver.
Oh, of course.
I am on the road.
Ken.
I am on the next road trip. So yeah, I'll be in the Mile High City. Otherwise, I'll be there in spirit, though. Put it that way.
We'll set up a challenge match on that bubble hockey game between me and you at some point on that. I'm looking forward to getting down on it. Hey, enjoy the game tonight. Thanks very much for doing this. Say hi to Piper.
Yeah, we got the Royal Rumble happening right behind me right now with Piper and Bodie, or Survivor Series, more like it. I better get to this before someone grabs a chair or a table.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, take care.
There's Mike McIntyre. We're going to chop it up some more on the visitors tonight, coming up in just a minute with Saad Yousuf from The Athletic in Dallas. Before we do that, of course, we had big Bomber news today. If you missed it right off the top of the show, Kyle Walters is back. Ted Gavaya is back. Danny McManus is back. All 2-year deals. So the brain trust moving forward of the Bombers will be the same, although we know that the team will be changing. And Buck Pierce, reportedly a finalist for the head coaching job in Saskatchewan. All our Bomber reports are brought to you by Princess Auto, proud sponsor of the Bombers and Winnipeg Sports Talk, and the place where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. Pop by and see them just in time for the holidays at either Panet Road or Portage Avenue West. And you can always shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. Speaking of holiday shopping, for the Winnipeg Jet fan in the family or your circle, for the Bomber fan, for just the hardcore sports fan, take care of them with one visit and one stop at the Sports Superstore, Royal Sports. Thousands of pieces of Jets merchandise, including tons of exclusives, personalized jerseys, and more. Same goes for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and all 32 NFL teams represented, the Blue Jays in Major League Baseball, Raptors, and the NBA, and of course, international soccer gear from around the world as well. All of that, and of course, snowboards, skis, and the best hockey selection in town for over 40 years. Royal Sports, get ready for the holidays at 750 Pembina Highway, and follow them on Instagram for the latest merchandise drops, sale information, and great holiday gift ideas. Hey, I did mention that party we're doing next Wednesday at Little Brown Jug. The link is in the description. Every cent going to the Christmas cheerboard, so get your tickets right now and make sure to join us. A big thanks to our friends at Boston Pizza, who will be firing over a bunch of their famous gourmet pies for us to get a few slices on while we're enjoying Winnipeg's favorite local beer, Little Brown Jug. Huge thanks to BP for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. And if you're not at the game tonight or Thursday, the next best place is your local Boston Pizza. I guarantee it'll be better than that Vikings-Bears game we sat through last night on Monday Night Football. Ice cold schooners, world-famous BP wings, gourmet pizzas, and more, and a bunch of great new treats on the BP Appy menu as well. Make it Boston Pizza tonight, and if you are staying at home, you can always order online at bostonpizza.com. All right, let's head down to Dallas and get ready for this tilt tonight. Great to welcome Saad Yousuf of The Athletic for a big Central Division matchup. Saad, what's going on? Great to have you on WST. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Big tilt tonight here in the Peg between, it's been sort of at one point on the weekend, it actually was a 3-way tie for first place. The Avalanche have put up a couple wins since then. And now we have this head-to-head matchup for the second time this season between the Winnipeg Jets and the Dallas Stars. 20 games in for Dallas. How impressive has this start been? And what have the keys been to the way they've been playing, albeit up until about the last week when they've had a couple uncharacteristic losses?
Right. Yeah. I'm glad you said that, because I was going to say, I think the start of the season was really good. I believe they were 11-3-1 through the first 15 games, which was actually in Pete DeBoer's 15 years coaching in the NHL was his best start ever. So they started off really, really well. And now, as you know, they've lost 3 out of the last 4, granted 1 in overtime. So they were able to get a point, but still, their play has dropped off a little bit. It's been, I think, the most impressive thing about the Stars to begin the season is how they've been able to rack up points, even though they're really not playing well, they're not playing to the level that's expected of them anywhere, except for maybe the penalty kill. Other than that, the power play has been sluggish. The 5-on-5 has been up and down. You have certain players, certain characters that are playing really well. Of course, Matt Duchene is at the top of that list for Dallas right now. Wyatt Johnston's taken a really great step in his second year as well, after being a strong Calder candidate last year. So there is definitely some of that where you feel like they're racking up points even though they're not playing at their best right now.
That game earlier this year, and it was a huge sports day in Winnipeg. The Bombers were playing in the West Final later on the afternoon. They moved the game up. And, the Jets came into that one having won a few in a row. And frankly, until Sunday, that was the last time that they'd lost that 3-2 game. I imagine we'll probably see a relatively similar game, although we expect Jake Ottinger to be in, and it should be a great goaltending battle because Connor Hellebuck's really kind of stepped his level up since that point in the season. But I don't think we'll see much different than very tight, hard-fought games between these two clubs because obviously Rick Bowness knows this team very well, and Peter DeBoer knows how important these head-to-head matchups are within the Central Division. And I think we got a taste of that a couple weeks ago, and where these teams are at right now, I think Winnipeg feels like they probably owe them one, and Dallas, from what you just mentioned, really looking to get back on track after kind of falling away from their play, especially with that crazy third period against Calgary in their last time out.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, they're coming off of a stretch in which, you know, they played three really competitive teams. And it was started with Colorado, then they lost 6-3 to Colorado in a similar way that they just lost to Calgary. It was a meltdown at the end of the game. Then they flipped the script against New York and they beat them 6-3, and then they played Vegas really tough to overtime and lost on kind of a fluky goal. So you know, they've played a run of good teams, and I think now Winnipeg is kind of part of that. You know, it was funny. The other day we were sitting in the press box, and one of the writers that was sitting next to me was just like, when did Winnipeg get up here? Like, well, like how did this happen? It's kind of always been like this is Dallas and Colorado's race, and Winnipeg has kind of like, you know, crept its way up there. So it's been impressive, and I know this is going to be a big one for Dallas, you know, to show up on.
Yeah, the Jets have entered the chat, Saad. They are here, and this should be a good one tonight. Nice comment from Craig Smith in the chat. Just subscribe to The Athletic. Love it. And Craig, Murat will be on tomorrow, I believe. Great piece on Mark Scheifele and Cole Perfetti. A must-read for Winnipeg Jet fans, and just another example of the quality journalism we get from The Athletic. Saad, I do want to ask you about Oettinger in particular, in that, and Mike just mentioned, in all likelihood, if we were getting a best-on-best tournament or an Olympics, these two guys would probably be 1 and 2 for Team USA. I don't think we know much about Jake Oettinger. We haven't seen him much in the media, certainly here north of the border. What makes him tick? And like, I know Connor Hellebuck, I think, looks ahead when he's playing a Saros or when he's playing an Oettinger and looks at it as a personal challenge as well. How big does Oettinger look at these opportunities, not only for his team, but also for himself when you think about the bigger picture as, you know, trying to maybe stake your flag in the ground to be that number one for USA whenever we finally get best on best hockey?
Yeah, no, for sure. You know, I think the best way to describe Oettinger is, you know, if you go back, I don't know if you watched the Last Dance documentary with Michael Jordan. There's a lot of those tendencies with Jake Oettinger. He loves being the villain. He loves playing on the road. You ask him, he loves having a high shot volume. He enjoys playing on the road more than he does at home because you know, that's just kind of his element. And so he's really, you know, he's one of the most competitive people that I've ever met in covering the sport. And I think what makes him go, and what's really impressive about him is how much he's developed technically. You know, he has the size and all the tangibles that you look for in an NHL goaltender. But now, if you watch him, the way he plays inside the crease, the way he moves laterally, the way he plays, the way he puck handles, and you know, he's also been a big beneficiary of, you know, the way that he's kind of come up in his career, in the sense that he had Ben Bishop there for him really throughout his early days in Dallas. And then he was kind of made this tandem with Anton Hudobin in his rookie year. And then the second year, when the Dallas sent him down and before they brought him back up, he had Braden Holtby in his back pocket, you know, to tutor him as well. So he's had a lot of really good mentors. Jeff Reese, the goaltending coach in Dallas, is one of the most respected in the league. And so Jake has been, you know, kind of, along with his personality and his skill and everything like that, it's kind of been the perfect storm.
One other guy I wanted to ask you about is Jason Robertson. And I say that as a guy that picked him quite early in my fantasy league. Like, you know, you look at the numbers and he's just 1 point off a point a game pace, and that's pretty good. He's leading the team in the assists, but we think of Robertson as being a guy that scores a lot. Has he just had a slow start? Is this a small sample size and the puck luck hasn't been there? I mean, where's Robertson right now coming into tonight?
That's a good question, and it's something that in Dallas we're trying to figure out what exactly is going on as well, because like you said, it's one of those weird things. You look at the stat sheet and you're like, well, there's nothing wrong here. But I think before last game he was riding somewhat of a 9-game streak without a point at 5-on-5 or something like that. So the point is, the power play has helped a lot in kind of stacking up some of those points. But, we saw something in the Minnesota series and the Seattle series in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs last year for the Dallas Stars, that Jason Robertson was neutralized in those 2 series. And it looked like teams have figured something out in terms of taking away the time and space for Robertson and seeing how he reacts. Because remember, Jason Robertson was a 2nd-round pick in 2017, and the knock on him coming out was, the reason why you can get a 109-point score in the 2nd round is because the knock on him was his skating. And, when you take away his time and space, how is he going to react? How he's going to create? And I think that's still kind of, to be determined in Dallas as well. The way that he plays, the way that he works, personally seeing him every day, have a little doubt that he's going to figure out another way to kind of go about it. It's more about a matter of when than if. But that is what's kind of going on right now with Robertson. And it'll be interesting. He also thrives on some of those environments, playing on the road, doing all those kind of things. I know in Winnipeg he had one of his best games of his career a couple of years ago when he had the hat trick in overtime. And so I think this road trip, going on the road against the division, could be good for him as well.
Saad Yousuf of The Athletic is with us from Dallas, getting ready for Jets Stars tonight. Hey, before we go, I know you cover the Cowboys. I've got to quickly slide over. I'm very interested in what listen, we know the Cowboys are about his public team. They're America's team. Everyone's all in on the Cowboys, and their record is great. But to be honest, you can say about them the same thing as the Miami Dolphins, that they don't really have a signature win. They've killed a lot of bad teams this year, but we're still waiting for a win against a winning team. Now, I personally think they should have beaten Philly when they played them earlier on. But what is the vibe around the fan base of the Cowboys? Is it cautious optimism, or are they all in? The Super Bowl is coming to Dallas this year, not kind of looking at maybe the light schedule that they played so far before it gets a lot tougher?
Yeah, I would say it's not. I would say it's really neither. It's not cautious optimism, nor is it being super gung ho. It's more just complete pessimism. It's looking at everything with this side eye of, we don't really believe what's happening right now. Like, we don't really believe any of this is really real. That's the pulse of the fan base right now. And I think it's going to be that way until the Cowboys do something. Not even in December. It's going to take until January, for them to do something in the playoffs, because we've seen them be good in December. We've seen, and right now, they have maybe the best defensive back in the game in Duron Bland. They have a quarterback who's playing at the highest level of anybody in the league since week 6, since that debacle in San Francisco. And yet the pessimism is still kind of there for Cowboys fans for, how real is all this? And so my retort to that is, unfortunately, one way or the other, you can only play who is on your schedule. They had a really bad loss against San Francisco. They had a fluky loss in Arizona earlier in the season. And then I'm with you. I think they really should have beat Philadelphia. So, they're a good team, but we're going to learn a lot about them in the next month or so after, the schedule really ramps up here.
Yeah, well, they're a big favorite against the Seahawks on Thursday night, and then we'll benefit from the extra long week getting ready to host the Eagles on Sunday Night Football on the 10th. That is going to be, that'll be a heck of a game. And then they do have a road game in Buffalo, although the Bills aren't what we thought they'd be. Dolphins as well, Lions and Commanders. So they're getting a chance to play some of those teams with winning records down the road. But as long as Philly stays a couple games up on them, it does look like it'll be another road game to the winner of the NFC South, and then probably a date with the number 1 seed. But never a dull moment around Dallas. How long were those guys thinking about their celebration to have the gall to put the turkey legs in the Salvation Army bucket to pull out in the midst of a blowout against the Commanders on Thanksgiving Day?
Yeah, it's the planning for that started, I want to say 2 or 3 days before Thanksgiving. And so, during the standard coaches meeting with Dak Prescott and Mike McCarthy, Jerry Jones was there as well. And so, yeah, about 48 hours or so before the game, they kind of, orchestrated the whole plan to have turkey legs everywhere. And it was amusing because after we got done with all the media, press conferences, locker room, I went back on the field and you still had bags of turkey legs in those kettles way after the game had ended. I would say like an hour after the game ended.
Saad, this was great to have you on the program. Thanks very much for doing this. There should be some great games between Winnipeg and Dallas as the season goes on. So let's plan to do this again a little later on. And really appreciate you jumping on with us before a big Central Division tilt tonight.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. And also just, I just want to add really, really nice to see Rick Bowness back and everything with Judy, progressing hopefully in a good way. Anybody that's worked with Rick Bowness from a media standpoint, players, anybody knows that's one of the most classiest individuals in NHL history. So I just want to say, really happy to see him back on the bench.
Well said, Saad, and a great visit on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Enjoy this game tonight. Thanks for your time.
All right. Thank you.
Good stuff. There's Saad Yousuf. You can read him in The Athletic covering the Dallas Stars and the Dallas Cowboys. All right. I see some breaking news from Bravo Bry in chat that there's going to be a emergency press conference today from the Blackhawks at 4:00 this afternoon to discuss the Corey Perry matter. So hopefully we can get a little bit of clarity and everyone can just move on and leave a certain 18-year-old superstar alone as well as his family. I would assume that was what the goal will be. That, anyways, great spot from Saad, and I cannot wait for this game tonight. And if you are going to this game tonight or joining us on Thursday for the Oiler game or Saturday afternoon when Bedard and the Blackhawks come to Winnipeg, don't forget, if you haven't been there yet this year, some great new additions to Canada Life Center. None better than our favorite local beer, Little Brown Jug, which you can now pick up at Craft Beer Corner in the Upper Bowl in the bar at Section 310, as well as downstairs near where the old Moxie's was in the newly revented north end of the building outside Section 26 at Craft Beer Corner. Not only can you get their iconic 1919 flagship brand, my favorite arena beer now is definitely Little Brown Jug Generic. And of course, you can pick those up at the game tonight. You can grab them at your favorite local beer store for the holidays. And you can certainly grab them at Little Brown Jug at William Avenue. And do not forget, a week tomorrow is the WST holiday party in support of the cheerboard. Tickets are on sale right now. There's a link in the description of this video, as well as at winnipegsportstalk.com. Would love to see a bunch of you podcast listeners as well that maybe we don't interact as much with daily in the YouTube chat. Come out and join us. We'll be doing a raffle there with some great stuff from Little Brown Jug and a couple of other prizes that we'll put together. And every cent from the ticket price goes to the Christmas cheerboard. And we'll also have some pies coming in from Boston Pizza, and Nick and Nikki DQ supporting the event as well with some ice cream treats for a little bit later on. So Wednesday, December 6th, we'll see you there. Get your tickets now before our capacity is reached. And I mentioned Nick and Nikki helping us out with the event. They've been helping us out since day one as day one sponsors of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Pop by and see them at DQ Northgate, DQ Polo Park, or DQ Niverville. And don't forget, especially if you're in the Niverville area, they've just opened up the Pita Pit in Niverville. Oh, Pita Pit is so good. A favorite of Remis's. Healthy, fresh, delicious, fast. And they do great catering as well. If you would like a catering package from Pita Pit and Nick and Nikki, hit them up on Instagram or X at Pita Pit Niverville. All right, let's get Remo back in here. And great stuff. Saad was a nice addition to the program. Enjoyed the conversation with John. And, of course, no shortage of Jets topics to get to with Mike McIntyre on the show today.
Yeah, a lot of Jets, a lot of NHL topics, too, with John there to start. You know, we had, Corey Perry, contract termination, Dean Evason getting fired, Patrick Kane signing. So there were a number of topics there. And, yeah, Jets and Stars, big tilt in the Central Division. Gabe Vilardi not playing. That's what we were talking about, the Jets lines. It's so funny, like, how they've been basically the same since the injury, which usually isn't the case, but they've been playing well. Connor Hellebuck looks to keep it rolling, but a big test against Jake Ottinger. And interesting to hear Saad say, Dallas really hasn't got it rolling. I know their power play, very strong. last season, and Jason Robertson just had a total breakout. Not as strong this year with the power play, middle of the pack, 14th in the NHL, but their top line, one of the best in the league with Hinson, Pavelski. But I was looking down their lineup. I mean, he mentioned Matt Duchene having a strong season. I think people kind of wrote him off, although he quietly was pretty good in Nashville. But their third line, I thought was strong with Jamie Benn, Wyatt Johnston, who kind of is under the radar, really good young player.
Goal scoring leader for rookies last year in the NHL. And he's definitely a player.
And Dadonov as well on that third line. And I think their fourth line is good too. So, I mean, this is an up and down lineup. This is a solid team. And yeah, it's them, Colorado, and the Jets battling for first in the Central.
Love it. Got to get this one tonight. Get this homestand started off on a winning note. Hand the Stars, return the favor from that Stars win in Winnipeg a couple weeks ago, and get back on another winning streak after their most recent one was snapped on Sunday night in Nashville. And it's funny, we talk about Hintz and Pavelski, and Hintz is an awesome player. Robertson's a star. Pavelski's a legend. And we haven't even mentioned who I think is their best player, and that's Miro Heiskanen. And on the blue line, he'll be paired up with former Wild cast-off Ryan Suter as the Wild continues to pick up the tab from that buyout along with Zach Parise, which certainly contributed to the demise of Dean Evason. Before we get to the Coolbet lines, shout out to today's qualifiers for the Trevor Linden jersey giveaway. Norm Gradecki, well done, Norm, and Ernie Waldner. Guys, congratulations. Make sure to join us around this time on Thursday, where we'll be doing a special marble race for the end of Men's Health Month. And you've qualified. You got a chance to win that great signed, autographed Linden jersey, complete with a certificate of authenticity and the full line of Prairie Naturals supplements. Get on to winnipegsportstalk.com/contest to enter to qualify. We'll pull 2 more names tomorrow and 2 more on Thursday, and then drop them for a bonus marble race with a great prize this week. Again, business as usual coming up on Friday. All right, let's get to the Coolbet lines. There is a lot going on tonight in the National Hockey League, and I don't do this often, but we have put together a WST parlay tonight for the Jets game. But Remo, a very busy slate of games tonight. Devils hosting the Islanders. Devils minus 163 favorites. The Panthers coming off that win last night in Ottawa, where there was nobody left on the bench after Garrett Rank gave everybody 10s that was on the ice. That was quite humorous. The Panthers plus 122 underdogs. The Leafs minus 143. Tampa playing on the second end of back-to-backs. The Canes, who we'll see here next week, minus 161 favorites in Philly against the Flyers. The Wild with their new coach, John Hines, at home hosting the St. Louis Blues. And the Wild have a lot of catching up to do in the Central Division. They're a minus 163 favorite. I don't think the Wild, no matter if they have a new coach or not, should be that much of a favorite against the Blues. But they are tonight. Blues plus 138 if you want to jump on the underdog. Very close to a pick 'em between the Penguins and Preds. UC Saros rolling right now, and the Predators winning 5 in a row to get back to 500. Penguins minus 110, Preds minus 106. The game here in Winnipeg has the Dallas Stars as a favorite of minus 119. Jets to win on the money line plus 102. The Kraken are in Chicago to take on the Blackhawks. Seattle's at minus 187. The Blackhawks are plus 158. This is, I think, going to be my cool bet play of the day today. The Tampa Bay Lightning coming off a loss last night. They are playing back-to-back. But, Colorado's rolling right now. They won again last night. They're now in first place in the Central. But I think the Lightning get back in the win column tonight against the Coyotes. Tampa's minus 122. The Coyotes are plus 104. And then a team we're going to see here on Thursday, the Edmonton Oilers, who have looked more like their old selves the last couple games, against the Vegas Golden Knights, who have it. Vegas losing last night on a softie on Aiden Hill in overtime. Vegas plus 120, playing on the second end of back-to-backs, and the Edmonton Oilers minus 141. Anaheim's lost 6 in a row. They're in Vancouver to take on the Canucks. Canucks minus 252. Anaheim plus 210. I think that'll be a pissed-off Canuck team after losing in regulation to San Jose on the weekend. But that is the full slate of games. Now let's go over to the exclusives. And if you go down to the bottom, just click load more. The Winnipeg Sports Talk parlay is there. We've got a Jets win. Mark Scheifele to score a goal. Josh Morrissey to record a point. Plus 525 if you want to ride with me on that one. And then in the lock shop section, Dusty and I, he's got I think there's an Edmonton Sports Talk parlay. Yeah. Oilers to win, McDavid 2 points, Nuge and Hyman each to record 1 point. That's plus 285. But our partner parlay today, we stayed away from the Jets and Oilers games. We're on the Devils to beat the Islanders, the Lightning to beat the Coyotes, and the Canucks to win by 2 at home against Anaheim. That one is in at plus 550 right now in the Coolbet exclusives. And shout out to everyone that rode with us last night. Remo, the only thing that made that god-awful Monday nighter worth it was hanging out into the fourth quarter to see Justin Fields go over his rushing prop combined with DJ Moore and Jordan Addison. And we cashed another 5-1-er. We've been killing the book in the exclusive parlays, but I think they made some money last night because there was a lot of money on Minnesota, and what a disappointing loss for the Vikes last night.
Yeah, that was a pretty rough one. Justin Fields driving the length of the field to kick the field goal at the end. DJ Moore, I'm sure some people won or lost their fantasy leagues based on that catch, him going over the 100-yard mark, and just such a dog shit game. I mean, it was terrible, for lack of a better word. I'm sorry. They couldn't do any offense. There were multiple turnovers by both quarterbacks. Just a poorly played game. One touchdown that happened at the end in the fourth quarter there by TJ Hawkinson. Just these primetime games have been awful, really, really bad. So, and it's funny. I'll say this: I have a lot of friends who are like, "Oh, you like the CFL?" Oh, there's so many bad. Look at this crap that the NFL has put on repeatedly. So,
listen, there's a handful of good teams, and everyone else is just whatever.
Yeah,
I mean, the Steelers.
They're so
are
bad.
7-4 with a point differential of minus 23, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. They're in a playoff spot. The Browns have no quarterback. They're in a playoff spot. And Gardner Minshew has the Indianapolis Colts in a playoff spot right now. And then, my God, on the other side, the Vikings are still holding one down at 6-6. The Falcons are getting ready for a home playoff game right now if it ended at 5-6.
They're so bad. They don't have a quarterback.
Seahawks, Rams, a lot of mediocrity outside of the top teams on both sides. It was funny though. I mean, I've been sick. I had a big weekend. I wanted to recover yesterday. I went to bed after the show around 5:30. Just I'll have a nap for an hour and a half and then watch the Monday nighter. Well, I obviously needed it because my alarm went off. I must have hit it and just went right back to sleep. I woke up at 8:30 going, oh my God, I missed the first half of the game. Turned my phone on, looked, and it was 3-3 at halftime. And I just laughed. I'm like, well, I obviously did not miss much. Oh, we missed a bunch of turnovers. I'm not sure whether the clock has struck 12 for Josh Dobbs. But that's a very costly loss for Minnesota, who now heads on to their bye week at 6-6 on the season. All right, well, big one tonight and a big week going on, folks. Thanks again for all the Movember donations. We had a couple days left in that. And again, trying to help out the Christmas cheerboard with the tickets for the holiday party next Saturday, 7 p.m. at Little Brown Jug. Hope to see you there. Get your tickets in the link in the description. Tell your friends. And let's have a great night coming up there for a very, very good cause. I'll look forward to seeing you all there. But first, we'll look forward to seeing most of you or many of you on Thursday for the Jets and Oilers, our next Winnipeg Sports Talk game. And again, check out the Thirsty Thursday promo. If you didn't get in on our package, see if you can grab a ticket somewhere near us. You can join us outside the bar of 316 before the game and at the intermissions. That's going to do it for us. Great stuff today. Shout out to Remis. Great production. Saad Yousuf of The Athletic, Mike McIntyre, Winnipeg Free Press, and Seth Rogen lookalike John Matisz. 7 o'clock puck drop tonight. And obviously K&R will be doing their thing afterwards, a legal curve as well. And we will be back tomorrow at 1 p.m. And if you haven't already, by the way, and you've joined us already, go into the YouTube channel or the podcast. Connor Rabchak, who joined us yesterday on the show, another bang-up job of Jets this week, recapping the end of the road trip and then setting up this big homestand, which begins tonight against the Dallas Stars. Thanks to all the sponsors for making Winnipeg Sports Talk happen, and all of you for jumping in and making us a part of your day. Maybe we'll see you at the game tonight. Say hi if you do. Be up in the upper bowl as usual, and you will definitely see me tomorrow with Michael Remis here, 1 p.m. Going to break down Murat Atesh's great piece in The Athletic on the Mark Scheifele-Cole Perfetti connection from the offseason, and much, much more coming out of tonight's opening game of the homestand, a big Central Division battle against the Dallas Stars. Enjoy the game tonight, gang, and we'll see you tomorrow, 1 p.m. right here on WST.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.